All right. Good morning, everyone. I think it's very loud. Is that better? Do what? Uh-huh. Yeah. It didn't sound very loud. Morning, everyone. To you that may be watching, today was one of those days, and so we're running a little behind. So I've got to... We're going to mostly be in Proverbs today. But instead of necessarily looking at one proverb, we're going to look at some other things, which I think will be very interesting. So one of the things we're going to kind of notice today is the style of Proverbs and how it was written. And I've mentioned this a couple of times, but one of the things I find both fascinating, very important for Bible study, is when we launch into a book that we kind of understand the literature and what we're launching into so that we get out of it what's expected. And the reason I think that's important is, if you were to, read any book that we have currently, whether it's a book of history or a book of, poetry or whatever it may be, we need to understand what we're getting into. And I think sometimes we get into Proverbs possibly thinking in terms of poetry or something of that way. And it's very important for us to understand what was intended as opposed to trying to get something out of it that was not intended. So when we look throughout the book, these are the different things that are written about Proverbs. You think about Proverbs, and generally we think of Solomon because it begins that way, that these are the Proverbs of Solomon. And in these different chapters, the Proverbs of Solomon, the sayings of the wise, more Proverbs of Solomon, the sayings of Agur, son of Jacob, the sayings of King Lemuel, and then you have some others throughout the book. So these are kind of a compilation of different utterances or sayings of different people that are for the kids, for their community, whatever it may be, that kind of help in that way. So what kind of literature or writing do you like to read? Anybody? What kind of literature writing do you like to read? Like if you're at a bookstore or you're at a Barnes and Noble or whatever, what hits your eyes? What do you like? History, fantasy, okay. Anybody else? Okay, I was waiting for you to say that. You seem like a sci-fi kind of guy. I know my dad really enjoyed history. He enjoyed wars and just and those kind of things. When you look at Proverbs is not history literature. There's nothing about it that's that way. It's not narrative literature, so you're not looking from one thing to the next in terms of linear, and it's also not prophetic. So some of the things in Proverbs, if it says, if you do this, this will happen, in terms of like a prophecy or looking at blessings, that kind of thing, it's not necessarily that either. And I think there's something in Proverbs that we kind of read incorrectly. And I'll throw kind of a hot one out, that if you raise your children correctly, they will end up faithful, which is not what the proverb says, but that's the implication. Raise a child in the Lord, and when he gets older, he will not lose his way, that kind of thing. And I'm not sure that's what that's intended for, because how many kids do you know that were raised in the Lord that left and never came back? Anybody? So obviously either the Bible's wrong or we're misunderstanding what that verse is about, what it's trying to say. I don't know, I've heard a number of people as kids leave, and there's this, the strength, the promise, the hope from other people is they'll come back. Well, some don't, and it's unfortunate, but it's helpful to understand the literature to know what that verse is actually trying to encourage us with. So Proverbs is wisdom literature, period. Like Ecclesiastes and Job, it's there to give us wisdom, to give us guidance and direction, like a mentor would do, like a guide would do. And that's really this whole book. It's much like a father to a son, mother to a daughter, grandfather to grandchildren, mentor to guide, that kind of thing. And so maybe stating one more time for the fourth time is we need to not make this book what it's not, but understand what it's there to do. And I think that will help us a great deal. So notice in chapter 1 and verse 10, Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 10. All right, Proverbs 1 and verse 10. My son, if sinful men entice you, do not give in to them. So Solomon in the Spirit points out very early that evil, and it's going to happen throughout this whole book, evil is acknowledged early, evil entices, it encourages action, it encourages results. So I found it interesting that when we go through verses 1 through 7, when we get to verse 10, very early on in this book, wisdom is embraced, it's desired to be embraced because what? Why would we need wisdom in our world today? Even as Solomon is writing these words to his son, grandson, whatever it may be, to Israel. Why is it important to know wisdom? Because evil's out there. Evil entices, evil encourages, but evil isn't there just to sit there and to kind of, poke fun at us. Evil encourages action and results. Look at the rest of this. Verse 11, if they say, come along with us, let's lie in wait for innocent blood, let's ambush some harmless soul, let's swallow them alive like the grave and whole like those who go down in the pit, we will get all sorts of valuable things and fill our houses with plunder. Cast lots with us, and we will all share the loot. So evil isn't there just to say, hey, this might be fun, but it's there to encourage us. Wisdom is there to give us those glasses to see what not only evil's there, but what it's there to do. It encourages action and results. And also, it provides the results of engaging in the evil. Look at 15 through 19. My son, do not go along with them. Do not set foot on their path. For their feet rush into evil. They are swift to shed blood. How useless to spread a net where every bird can see it. These men lie in wait for their own blood. They ambush only themselves. Such are the paths of all those who go after ill-gotten gain. It takes away the life of those who get it. So I hope I'm not reading something into this that's not there, but this book begins with the gaining of wisdom, the reverence for God, listening to what he says, because evil's there. It's out there. It entices us, encourages action and results. So we need to be aware of this. We need to listen to not only the Bible, but wise men who are anchored in this. So I also found this theme interesting as we go through the book. And this is actually the first 9 chapters. In chapter 1 and verse 8, chapter 1 and verse 8, listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. And then chapter 2 and verse 1, my son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, train your ear to wisdom, apply your heart to understanding. Chapter 4 and verse 1, listen, my son, to your father's instruction, pay attention and gain understanding. Chapter 5, verse 1 and verse 7. So if you look at each one of these verses, each one of them where this guide, this mentor, right now it's Solomon, continues to say, listen, pay attention, make this stuff important. Because whenever evil does come and entice you, you'll recognize it. And you'll want to stay with wisdom. You'll want to stay in that wise place. Now, the reason I find this interesting is after raising 2 boys, how oftentimes do we sit with them and do we talk with them and listen to me and be safe, know where the dangers are, understand where joy and promise and strength is. We just continue to offer wisdom and guidance for them. And that's what God's offering to us, taking the words as precious and high value. Do you remember as you were growing up how hard it was sometimes to disregard the words of maybe a parent or a grandparent or somebody that you knew was wise? They're just older and they're not young anymore, and these are just things that they say. Maybe they didn't do the same thing when they were younger. Did you find yourself kind of putting those things off, or did you find yourself listening to them and abiding by them? Is that a smirk, Ty, or are you?
Depends on your age. Whether you listen to those things or not.
Yeah.
Whether you recognize it or not, you're just old-fashioned, or there's something to that.
There's something to that. Yeah. That's smart stuff. I've oftentimes wondered, because even as I go through these proverbs, one of the things we notice is like just a reiteration, constant reiteration of really the same thing, of wise living, of listening to what God says, of how to stay away from evil, why to stay away from evil, and how to promote godly, wise living. It's just a constant flow, almost in different ways of saying the same thing. So again, when we notice this, one other thing, when we look at chapter 3 and verse 19 and 20 and chapter 4 verse 18, the power of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, which is what Solomon continues to push. So chapter 3 and verse 19, by wisdom the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By understanding he set the heavens in place. By his knowledge the watery depths were divided, and the clouds let drop the dew. My son, do not let wisdom and understanding out of your sight. Preserve sound judgment and discretion. They will be your life, an ornament to grace your neck. Do y'all find that interesting? By God's wisdom, by his knowledge, the earth's foundations were laid. By his understanding, he set the heavens in place. By his knowledge, the watery depths were divided. How do you guys see those phrases, those comments? Mm-hmm.
He created a system, an orderly system, designed to function according to his will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. One of the things I also find interesting about this is as God for almost 3 chapters now, or for this portion of the book, has been pushing wisdom and understanding and knowledge, and that we need to, I think chapter 1 stated, treat it as gold, treat it as something very, very precious. And then God kind of opens up this door that by wisdom, God laid the earth's foundations. By understanding, the heavens were put in place. So initially, how powerful is God's wisdom, his knowledge, and his understanding? And he's offering this stuff to us. It's not like we have to spend, $800 per credit hour to go to college to get it. We don't have to, spend any amount of money on it. God just offers it, this powerful, incredible depth of information. God offers it. Tony, what's his name? The guy that does all those seminars, Tony Robbins. You know how much it costs to go to one of his seminars? I don't exactly know a number, but it's insane. It's really, really expensive. And God just offers this stuff. Just right here in front of us. We need to read it and take it in and make it a part of our lives. And then chapter 4, verses 18 and 19. The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. So the reason I find that interesting, much like chapter 3 and verse 18, is whenever we walk as righteous, we're like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. So that's not only good for us, but who else is that also good for? That's right. Everybody you come in contact with. People maybe you're mentoring, people you're guiding. And it kind of is a little reference over there to Matthew chapter 5. Be the light of the world. City set on a hill does not cloak itself, but it shines. So as we walk in this wisdom, people ask us questions, people want mentoring. That righteousness is like the morning sun. It's very powerful, it's very bright, it's very encouraging for people. So that's the power of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that God offers to us, God gives to us. And it's not just freely, it's free. It's this book, we buy the book, we open it, and God provides this stuff for us. So again, as we look at this recurring theme with the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding of God, notice chapter 3, verses 1 through 18, and we'll see if we can read this not just quickly, but we'll go through it. Chapter 3, verses 1 through 18. My son, do not forget my teachings, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years, bring you peace and prosperity. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways submit to him. He will make your paths straight. So do not be wise in your own eyes. Revere the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing. Your vats will brim over with new wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, and do not resent his rebuke, because the Lord's disciplines those who he loves. As a father, the son he delights in. Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is profitable, more profitable than silver, yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you can desire will compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, and her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed. Now, as we read through all that, there was a lot of promises that I think we can take wrongly from a Western mindset, the way that we're kind of raised and we read things. But again, this is wisdom literature. It's poetry. And how oftentimes does poetry use, not just picturesque, but visual language to get across its idea? So when it tells us that if we follow the ways of the Lord, we'll have long life. If we do the things God tells us to do, our lives will be wonderful. They'll be great. And it's very easy to take that we'll never get sick, bad things will never happen, and we'll live till we're 80 and life will be happy. Do you think that's what Solomon is promising here? I don't. I think he's saying that as we walk in this world, as we listen to God's wisdom, our walk with God, our understanding of evil from good will be solid, it will be clear. And in that way, we'll live a long life. We will enjoy our days. We will be blessed by the wisdom that God gives to us. So as we understand the good from the bad, God blesses us with that filter, with that understanding. Then if you go down to verse 21 through 26, my son, do not let wisdom and understanding out of your sight. Preserve sound judgment and discretion. They will be life for you, an ornament to grace your neck. Then you will go on your way in safety, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, and you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Have no fear of sudden disaster or the ruin that overtakes the wicked, for the Lord will be at your side and will keep your foot from being snared. Boy, how do you like those promises? How cool is that? Your foot will not be snared. You'll have sweet sleep when you live and abide in the wisdom that God gives to us. So these are the promises that God gives us. And again, the power, the efficacy of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. It's not just very important stuff, but it's very valuable things that God promises to us whenever we just take hold of it and we make it a part of who we are. If you go to chapter 6 and verse 20, then Solomon talks about the power of deception and lust. And it's interesting, at least up to this point, Solomon seems to compare, and in fact, very early, and I believe it's chapter 1 or chapter 2, he starts talking about the adulterous woman, the prostitute, the woman that is just flaunting herself out there. And so this idea of wisdom and understanding and knowledge, as I like the word to juxtapose, some people get frustrated when I use that word. It sounds weird. When we compare wisdom, knowledge, and understanding up against this adulterous woman, this prostitute, anything that the world offers to us. That's what Solomon's doing. He's kind of doing this extreme idea of one from the other, how to know one, how to live in one, and how to be very weary of the other one and understand what that brings. And so chapter 6 and verse 20, my son, keep your father's command and do not forsake your mother's teachings. Bind them around your neck, fasten them around bind them on your heart, fasten them around your neck. Well, where else do we hear that idea? It's in another book. Bind them to your heart, fasten them around your neck. Yeah, Moses gave the same ideas to the children of Israel. Here's Solomon's giving them in wisdom literature. When you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will speak to you. So verse 24, actually verse 23, for this command is a light, this teaching is a light, and correction and instruction are the way of life. Verse 24, keeping you from your neighbor's wife, from the smooth talk of a wayward woman. Do not lust in your heart after her beauty, or let her captivate you with her eyes. For a prostitute can be had for a loaf of bread, but another man's wife preys on your very life. Can a man scoop fire into his lap without his clothes being burned? Can a man walk on hot coals without his feet being scorched? So is he who sleeps with another man's wife. No one who touches her will be unpunished. Boy, how interesting that Solomon dips into this pool, and whether necessarily wisdom, straightforward, both of them are the case. You cannot dip your life into sin and it not have drawbacks, it not affect you in some very powerful way. So I'm just going to dip over here or dip over there, whatever the sin may be, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. How interesting when he, can a man scoop fire into his lap without his clothes being burned? Can he walk on hot coals without his feet being scorched? So sin is very real. Evil is very real. All of these things are they're not, vapors. They're not little things happening. They very much affect our lives, and they affect the people that we may be trying to mentor as well. Yes, very true, very true. Yeah. And I've heard, at least the scholars seem to say, the idea that this was actually early in his life. The Proverbs, now, when I say early, I don't mean he was like a teenager. Ecclesiastes was later, obviously, but this stuff was, it's almost like he's learning along the way, and he's sharing this stuff with his sons. Don't be stupid like I was. I did it, I experienced it, and it's bad. Don't do that. Yeah.
It seems to me that Solomon started out in the early part of his reign with very best of intentions.
Oh, yeah.
He was humble. He asked God to bless him with wisdom so he could judge matters righteously. But as he got older and older, I think he drifted away. He was told not to develop a military force, because God would take care of the nation as long as they were obedient to him. But he did multiply horses and chariots later on. He had 700 plus wives and concubines, made alliances with foreign women, and all these things that God had forbidden. But, so he, I think you're subject to temptation just like everybody else. Be careful.
Yeah. Well, and when you consider a man that had as much wealth as he had, whether handed down or given to him, as much wisdom as he had, people, came to him. I oftentimes wonder about people that, they go speak somewhere, about like 20,000 people, or a lot of people come to them for wisdom and knowledge and whatever, and some of the people that I watch on YouTube, I do wonder, how do you not get a big head? How do you, contain, or how do you keep that humility in check and in place and not think you're bigger than you are? And that's the challenge Solomon had. Wisest man ever, super, super wealthy. People came from all over to hear his wisdom. And I think that's what a lot of the book of Proverbs is about, is look, and when all this stuff happens, don't get ahead of yourself. Wisdom and knowledge and understanding, all of this is from God. This isn't you. This is God blessing you with it. And so when you go after the women, when you go after wars, harlotry, when you amass a big army, God told you not to. That's harlotry. So you can't do all those things and it not deeply affect how you follow God, how you see God, how you respond to God. And again, I think that's why it's important for us when we read certain parts of this. It's not just harlotry and it's not just adultery. It's when God offers us something and we say, yeah, I'm going to hold that over here on the side and I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. It's harlotry because we're leaving our trust for God, and God says, I'll take care of it. Say, well, I'm still going to try this other stuff over here. It's going to affect us. It's going to affect our walk with God, and it's going to affect our righteousness only from the standpoint, not that we're necessarily going to lose it, but that we're going to entrust something else, whether it's money or acknowledgement or whatever it may be. Whenever we leave trusting that God's going to take care of us. And I tell you, that is a very, very, I wouldn't even say slippery slope. How many times during the week do you go from just strong, firm trust in God, strong, firm trust in His wisdom, His guidance, to I'm gonna try something else. I'm gonna maybe look at some other avenues over here. So chapter 8, real quick. Chapter 8 and verse 1, Solomon asked this rhetorical question. Does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? The highest point along the way where the path meets, she takes her stand. Beside the gate leading into the city, at the entrance, she cries out. To you, O people, I call you. Or I call out, I raise my voice to all mankind. You who are simple, gain prudence. You who are foolish, set your hearts on it. Listen, for I have trustworthy sayings to say. I open my lips to speak what is right. And et cetera, et cetera. Verse 12. I, wisdom, dwell together with prudence. I possess knowledge and discretion. To revere the Lord is to hate evil. I hate pride, I hate arrogance, I hate evil behavior, I hate perverse speech. Counsel and sound judgment are mine. I have insight, I have power. And so on. So you don't have to go to some secret place. You don't have to go to some expensive college. You don't have to find the right book in the library. Solomon tells us that wisdom calls out. She's right there on the road. She's right there in your house. She's at the, right there at the head of the table, ready to dispense her knowledge and her wisdom. So it's not some, thing that we have to find the right formula for. It's right there in front of us. And so then in chapter 9, what I call the efficiency and the order of wisdom. Wisdom has built her house. She has set up its 7 pillars. 7, obviously, Old Testament, perfect. She has prepared her meat and mixed her wine. She has also set her table, and she has sent out her servants, and she calls from the highest point in the city, let all who are simple come to my house. To those who have no sense, she says, come, eat my food, drink my wine that I have mixed. Leave your simple ways, and you will live. Walk in the way of insight. I just love that picture of wisdom who gets her house straight, sets her table, gets everything ready, and then goes to everybody. Come on in. Eat of my food, drink of my wine. Let's visit. Let's connect. Because wisdom is very, very available in terms of what Solomon is giving us here. I just think that's real cool. And to me, that's, when I was younger, I thought, God, you could have said all this in like 2 chapters. 2 chapters, that's all it did. And yet, it's just this continual guidance and wisdom. And kind of to close out our class, why do you think God does that? Why is it just a continual, almost reiteration, continually, of kind of the same ideas, the same topics? That's the answer. It really is. That's the simple, profound answer, is we're stubborn at different levels. And, as you remember raising kids, it's just this, this constant, you send them out with knowledge and wisdom, and they come back and they did something dumb. And so you send them out with knowledge and wisdom, and they come back and they did something dumb. And maybe 1 out of 5 times they came back and they say, I listened, and I got it right. And until they're older, and they can grasp this stuff, God continues to share it with us. Wisdom, chapter 9, continues to open up her house to us, feed us, and have this hospitality of invite. Just come on in and eat of my food, drink of my wine, and your days will be blessed. Anything else? So what was the last time that you, not maybe read through, because if you're like me, I have a really hard time reading stuff. It's a challenge for my brain. When was the last time you read a significant part of Proverbs? And not like through a study guide, but you just sat down and read it. And I'm not asking this to go, to not to down you, but, to highlight that nobody has. But it's just a continual book over and over again of the same kind of ideas. But obviously, we need it.
Well, in answer to that question,
Yes.
it's like, that's too long. Whatever
Yeah.
your answer is.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. Yeah.
I meander in there, occasionally.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's been too long.
Well, I was thinking about, as I was doing this, the book of Jeremiah. Do you know how long the book of Jeremiah is? Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah, Lamentations. There it is. It is 51 chapters long. Is that right? It is 52 chapters long. Now, a lot of prophecy there and a lot of history of Israel, but these are just longer books that take some discipline for us to sit down and read through. And I'm not sure if these were intended for anyone to sit down and read through in one go. I know I can't concentrate that long. But we just take these little pockets of wisdom and understanding, and we apply them, and we move on.
Paul said on one occasion that these things that for instruction, they were
Yes.
serve as examples for us.
Yes. Yes.
We can go back and look at how Israel and Judah acted and how things turned out for them.
Yeah.
And we can
Yeah.
glean lessons from their experiences.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think to our point today, not just lessons, but wisdom, wisdom and understanding that God provides for us. Yeah, great point. All right, well, let's close with a prayer. God, we thank you for this wisdom that you so freely offer to us. You've set the table, and you allow us to just come in and eat and drink and take in all of these blessings that you have for us. Father, help us to work on our discipline, to learn, to grow, to gain what you have to give us. We offer this